Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, VJR Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday night, 8:01 Central Time. And if it is Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So, Tom, let's give a shout out to Count Basie for providing our theme music, to our own studio and Forest Films for our virtual studio. And with that being said, please hit the like button. Help us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, hit the notification bell. And then share this link with the others on your social media to help us grow the audience. And if you're watching the show live, invite a friend, family member, a friend of me, a co-worker, or a neighbor so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring information and news to our social media, to our audience. What say
all right,
you?
we have a intriguing topic for everyone tonight. We're not going to do current events. We're going to go back to an old school topic that we used to do on our shows pretty regularly. This will be the state of relationships and marriage in America. So we are going to go back to something, I guess I would say, a throwback topic that we started to do in the early days that we haven't done in quite a while.
Tom, do I need to give you my blood pressure pills, man? You gonna be okay?
Hey man, I'll be fine. I think you
Okay,
take more pills.
well,
I think you take more pills than I do, Jimmy.
I
So,
do. I take a lot of pills, unfortunately, man. I fight with my doctors all the time about the amount of medicine they have me loaded up on. So, but I'm fighting to get off of them one by one. So as I get healthier. Hey, man. Speaking of which, how's your dad doing?
he is doing fine. I want to thank you for asking. For those of you who may not have been on our recent calls, my dad had hip replacement surgery after a fall in January, and he's doing well one day at a time. He is back at home a couple of weeks, or actually, I guess about 2.5 weeks out of what they call a skilled nursing facility where they were doing physical therapy. So just taking it one day at a time, just been kind of working with him not to move too fast as he thinks he can go out and do everything like he used to do. And I'm just trying to get him to do it one day at a time, one step at a time. But
I
he's
know your
he's
dad's an
doing
old
great.
school ladies man, man. Tell him to focus on the PT and leave
Yeah,
those nurses alone, man, to get healthy.
I understand, boy.
Don't be in
That's
there collecting phone numbers now.
yeah.
Till you get 100% rehab.
True that. True that. We want to acknowledge Ms. Tanya Hall, who is on the chat line. Want to thank her for joining us. And of course, anyone who wants to ask any questions or contribute their thoughts to tonight's shows, please join us on the chat line. We'll be monitoring that throughout tonight's show.
Okay. Well, Tom, let's jump on in. There's nothing to it till you do it. So let's just get to it. We don't have any ancestors to talk about tonight. Um,
Not tonight. We'll be catching up next week. We have quite a few folks that we've lost, but we'll definitely get back to those on next week. And Jimmy, on the topic of relationships and marriage, in addition to talking general, we had some pretty high profile stuff happen this past week. I don't know if with you being a Cowboys fan, I know you probably heard about what happened with Dak Prescott and his fiance as well. So we may have to throw that into the conversation tonight as well.
yes, I did. I heard that he called the marriage off in the last minute at the engagement party. Now, how do you get to an engagement party, bachelorette and bachelor party, and decide to call off a wedding over a prenup? Shouldn't you have already worked that out a long time ago, Tom? I mean, when you put the ring on and propose, don't the lawyers come in at that point with the prenups and get all the signatures before you start making announcements and making plans?
I don't know what happened personally, with that, Jimmy. But sometimes those things happen. Obviously, with him being a very high profile person, I don't know if he's still the highest paid player in the NFL, but one of
Yes,
the highest paid player in the NFLs. And you look at these agendas and what they look like, and of course they had, I believe, two children.
they have two children together. Yes.
Children together, and so obviously he's trying to protect his financial interests or his family interests, and things look like they blew up.
Well, Tom, I don't know who his legal advisors are, but I know here in Texas, when you enter into a marriage, the property you brought into that marriage is separate. It's not community property. It's only the property that you acquire while you're married. So his $240 million contract, which I think he's gotten probably half of, car. Probably has 2 years left on it. I mean, all of that would be property that he brings into the marriage, would be separate, and only be the assets there too while they're married, which would be the remainder of his contract and another contract after that that we're talking about. So it's not like if they were to get a divorce that she walks away with half of everything he has. I mean, that would be the case. So I'm not sure why the prenup is so important to him at this. You got 2 children together. You know, what I mean, you can't figure out whether you want to be married to this woman or not. And that's one of the things, Tom. I'm glad you brought up Dak Prescott, because I think that's part of the issue here in America, especially in the black community, that we're putting the cart before the horse. Why are you having children before you're married? So that's hopefully while we're talking tonight, we'll get to that topic. That is probably a sign for women to say, don't make that kind of commitment to anyone in a relationship. We're bringing children into this world until you have something in security in exchange for it. So there's nothing wrong with her wanting to be secure and know that she's going to be financially secure if the marriage breaks up, because most likely she's going to be stuck with the 2 kids or any other kids they may have. And he has enough money, I would think, that he shouldn't be concerned about how much she would get out of it if they were to split up. I mean, God, you made 60-some $1 million before. You made $240 million on this contract, and then most likely you have another $100+ million contract waiting for you, even after this. So you potentially talking about $500 million in earnings, and you're fighting over a prenup with the woman that supposedly you love. So that doesn't make sense to me. I would tell them to go ahead and get married without the prenup.
Well, that is one theory, but a lot of times, especially with high profile players such as Dak Prescott, sometimes they get caught into not knowing whether that person is there for them or there for the money. And sometimes when you're in a position like that, you just don't know, and so you want to protect your financial interests. I would agree with you in terms of having the children, and we can have that conversation because a lot of people aren't concerned as much about the marriage as they are about having children. But if we look at another interesting story that we don't have all the details on, but I'm trying to think of the young man's name who was the top draft pick. Well, I think he was the second pick in the draft last year. Cornerback, played, of course, for Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders. And there are some rumors out there about him after getting married having some issues within his marriage, and he did not have a prenup. And who knows what may happen there.
Well, Tom, that's why your picker has to.
There we go. Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter. Okay. Actually, I thought Travis Hunter went to Tampa Bay.
He did not go to Tampa Bay. He went to, I believe it. I'm trying to remember what team he
one of the Florida teams.
Right. Correct.
What Miami?
No, it
wasn't Tampa Bay. It was who's
Jacksonville. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay. So is he married and his marriage is in trouble?
Well, there are innuendos and theories that his wife may be having too good of a time while they're in marriage.
Okay. Well, those things happen, Tom. That's why you have to be careful about who you select when you make that kind of commitment on both sides. And a lot of times, people pickers are just bad.
And in this case, Jimmy, a lot of people were very concerned for Travis Hunter because at the time that they got, I think he may have not even been selected second overall, but the woman didn't even really know who he was kind of talking about him in a funny way because I guess she didn't consider him to be the prettiest man in the world. And then when she found out that he was one of the top draft picks in the NFL, all of a sudden she fell in love with him and was ready to get married all of a sudden. But, now that they're married, there's a lot of other alleged shenanigans that are going on now that she's got him on the hook and he's got that big contract on the front end. When she didn't even know who he was, when she met the guy, was kind of blowing him off until she found out and everybody else told him who he was.
But Tom, that's on him. So hopefully he'll learn from what he's done. Hopefully they find a way to work it out and stay together. But if they don't, you just got to be a little smarter about who you make a life commitment with. And hopefully, that's one of the things that we can vet out tonight. So, where do you want to get started?
Well, I will let you start off, and then we'll go from there. This is kind of one of the topics that I know that you wanted to address. So let's kind of start from the foundation level and go from there.
Okay. Well, one of the things, Tom, is you know I like to observe a society, man, and try to look at trends that are going on. And it's a lot easier today because everybody's documenting their life. Everybody wants to be on Switch or Twitch or X, Facebook and YouTube and or Instagram, and everybody's documenting every aspect of their life, every moment. So there's not much that you need to do surveys on to figure out how people are thinking. Just go out to social media and start tuning in to what people are saying. They'll pretty much tell you what they're thinking and how they're behaving. And here's my thing, Thomas, that I think that we're in serious trouble. When I say we, specifically talking about black people in America. Uh, Culturally, this path that we're on is going to have disastrous effect if they haven't already. We've already reaped some of the disasters from that, and that is it seems like our women don't quite know how to be women, where our men want to marry them and protect them and provide for them, and our men don't know how to be men and know how to protect and provide. Um, I can't tell you how many YouTube, Instagram, how many Facebook clips that are out there of these women who are taking care of grown men, um, where the man in their life stays at home, doesn't work, pretty much a piece of crap as far as I'm concerned. And I certainly wouldn't want my daughter to be with any guy who doesn't work. I don't care how much money you make. I mean, it doesn't matter if she makes more money than you. That's not the issue. The issue is how do you feel good about being a provider and a protector when you don't work? When a woman is totally taking care of you, providing for you, put money in your pocket, you live in her house, you drive in her car, and you have no job. And I'm amazed at how many women go for this deal. And it's like, man, this is epidemic for the number of women that are in this situation. And then you bring kids into the world on top of that, which exacerbates the problem for a guy who's not committed to you, at least not committed enough to marry you.
Well, Jimmy, I mean, you bring up some interesting points, and I would think that those men who are being taken care of by women or women who choose to take care of men are in the minority. I don't know statistically, what that looks like in terms of the number of men. What I do know, obviously, if we look at the marriage rates in America, from top to bottom, Asian Americans are more likely to be married. That being Asian men and Asian women are more likely to be married. I think 60 and 62% are currently married, and African Americans or black men and women are the least likely to be married in America. After Asians, you have Caucasian,
White
Hispanic,
Jews.
and then, oh, yeah, I guess if you consider that they're such a small part of the population, they don't really categorize them as an ethnic group. But if you look at the major groups, you have Asians, Caucasian, Hispanic, and or African Americans who are the least likely to be married. And there's a startling statistic that says that I think among, of course, all women, black women are the least likely to be married among all women, which is interesting because at some point in time when we were living and very young, African American men and women were the most likely to be married, and now they are the least likely to be married. And there's a huge gap right now in the marriage rate between Asians and or African Americans. And people might say, well, so what? But also when you look at the fertility rate among African Americans, Caucasians, and others, that is beginning to collide, where our fertility rate at African Americans is now also beginning to decline, depending on whose statistics you're looking at.
But Tom, you bring up a good point. And let me ask you this: what do you think led to that transformation to go from one extreme to the other?
I think that's pretty easy. I mean, if you pluck the if you pluck the man out of the household, then that usually isn't going to work too well for the family, not only in terms of marriage rates, but also in terms of fertility rates within the household. We've talked about this several times when we look at policy in this country, whether it pertains to the incarceration rates of African American men as it pertains to their peers for the same types of charges in court. If you look at, of course, what we talked about on several occasions, which of course is influencing women to not have men around so that they can, of course, get money from the government, especially those who are in high rates of poverty, starting in the 70s, or maybe I think starting in the late 60s and going into the 70s, that the
Yes,
government would actually pay you not to be married. And so
true.
the federal government became your husband and your primary breadwinner because you made more money without the man than with the man in the household. And then that led into our generation of latchkey kids, where you had both parents working because both parents had to work.
Right.
And as a result of that, you had kids who were not totally raising themselves, but you did not have the father who was the breadwinner and the traditional mother who was the caretaking, taking care of the children. And now we have moved into a generation where the vast majority of our children are being raised solely by women. And so that works
77%, Tom, that's continued to grow. I mean, it was an
exactly.
embarrassment when it was 70% 10 years ago, but for now to be 77% is an embarrassment. We're heading in the wrong direction.
So that is going to create a problem because ultimately we come from a African centered theology in terms of family where you have a village raising children. Otherwise, it's not just a nuclear Western theory of family where you have a mother, a father, and a child, but you have an extended family. You have parents, you have grandparents, you have uncles and aunts, and they all collaborate together. And so if in the incident where a mother or a father or someone else is unable to support their child, dies, whether it's through war, disease, or whatever the case is, you have that extended family. As we have grown from an agrarian rural society to a more industrialized society and now a more technological society, we have adopted a culture that really just focuses on what's going on in that one household. And we're not talking about multiple generations in one household. If you pluck one person, the male or the female, out of that, then you have a very unstable stool.
And Tom, what are the churches? One of the churches doing more to address this issue? It seems that for since even before the end of slavery, let's say during slavery and then post-slavery, it seemed like black folks were sort of the spirit and soul of America, fighting for rights, trying to do the right thing. And in fact, we were probably closer to God at that point for spirituality than we are now. It's like now it's just anything goes, and it's not a case of needing financial support. Black women are the most successful group in America as far as being
And
educated, finding jobs coming out of college, and somehow how this group of women settle for guys who are not worth. I hate to say not worth it, but I mean they're just piece of crap guys. Guys have nothing going for themselves. Like I said, you don't have to have a bunch of skins on the wall, deep degrees, have a deep pocket and deep paychecks. I guess those things help if you're a woman, you finding someone to start a family with. But I'm sorry, it's not asking too much for your husband to go out there and work. And maybe and so if something happens to you, if you get pregnant, decide to have children, if you decide you want to stay home and raise your babies for a couple of years, well, if you're at home and he's at home and the children are there at home, that's going to make for a very sticky situation, Tom. That formula is not going to compute in the end. Somebody has to get out and work and bring money in. And traditionally, that's been the man, but it seems like we're okay with accepting non-traditional roles now, far too easily and accepting of it than other groups. And to me, I think that's bothersome. I think that's bringing down our culture altogether when compared to others. We will never be able to catch up. And even if you look at it biblically, the great prophets of the Bible all were promised to be fathers of nations, But you know what? That meant they had to have wives and they had to have children in order to do that. You're not going to be the father of any nation, be a great man among nations, popping out children you can't afford to take care of and you don't want to be bothered with. You're not raising yourself. And then it shows a lack of, you can't stick it out with a woman to build a life with. How are you going to stick to any agreement with God and be true to yourself or anyone else? I mean, I hate to just bring in the Bible, but all this ties together with what kind of character you have when you can't make a commitment and stick to it, and then when you have obligations and responsibility that need children that you need to be responsible for, you can't do that. We're okay with the making of the babies. We're okay with being there to have the good time to make the babies, but somehow after the babies come, far too many fathers are absent in their children's lives and their baby mamas, which I hate that term, lives. There really shouldn't be any baby mamas. There should be married couples and widows.
I would agree with you. However, it's a little bit more complex than that because I would agree
Well,
that
expand out. Go ahead.
I would agree that men should be stepping up. However, I believe that a lot of women, and black women in particular, are doing what they have to do with the absence of black manhood
They are.
in their household and in their house in order to feed their children and or take care of their children. And unfortunately, we are at a state of crisis within the black community. And I think with any other ethnic group, there would be billions of dollars being allocated by this U.S. government to save the white family, to save the Jewish family, God forbid, to save the Hispanic family if there were any other ethnic group that were in the state of crisis as we are. However, I believe it is by the design that the black family is in this state because I believe if we look at the policy of the government in the United States and you look at the war on black America, which we have looked at in many different vicissitudes, if we look at the war on black manhood, if you do not yield to the desire of the silent power, force of power to humiliate you, then they will destroy you. Every other group, many of which we've talked about, that have fought from the time of post-Reconstruction to the civil rights years to current day. If they cannot take you down, they will take you out. That goes from our first senators post-Reconstruction in the South. They were taken out. They were flogged out. We look at the men who fought for our families, fought for our children in the early 20th century, who were lynched. We look at the many men, our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-grandfathers, who fought in every war that has ever been fought on U.S. soil or away from U.S. soil for America, who come back home in their uniforms to be humiliated, to be exploited, to be lynched. Some in their own uniforms after fighting for this country. Up and until, of course, the 70s, where you saw the war on drugs in America was really nothing more than a war on the black community when you look at drugs and guns that were infiltrated into our communities that, of course, was going to lead to nothing else but killing ourselves. That in and of itself will take out a lot of black men, leaving nothing but black women in order to try to take care of the households, especially for those who were not killed. The rest of them, many of them going into prisons. And so you have women who are literally having to defend themselves. I'm not going to excuse everything for that happening, but a significant part of that is by design that black men were pulled from the black household and has destabilized it. I won't say permanently, but definitely in dire straits today.
Okay, Tom, well, I think we can both agree on that. There is certainly a movement and energy to keep the black population from rising up, or those who feel threatened by it. But despite that, we still have choices. And we still have control over our lives outside of policy, outside of government, outside of social norms and movements. We still get to dictate how we think, how we behave in our decisions. And right now, our women make horrendous decisions on the men that they decide to have children for who don't commit to them. Uh, our men make horrendous decisions on the quality and the type of woman that they decide to get with. And here's one of the things, Tom, that I'm seeing more and more from talking to young people and watching some of the stuff they put out there. You see, the young guys or have gotten much better, as they put it, spin game, which is being able to lie and convince a woman that they love her so they can extract money from her, wealth from her, or assets from her. But really, deep down, they really don't, because when they are called to the carpet, when they get caught trying to do the same thing to other women, basically cheating, then you really find out just how much they love you when they're calling you using the B word, the W word over and over to your face while living in your house, driving your car, and spending your money. It's like, well, look, lady, I'm sorry. How could your picker be that bad that you couldn't see this guy was not good for you? Maybe when you decided to get with him and he had nothing, and you decided to try to build him up and fix him, maybe that was your first clue that you should not be in the man building business. You should be in the woman building business, trying to make yourself the best quality woman that you can be. And then that's the other issue. I'm not just here to just douse fuel on the men, because the women are not much better, Tom. I pray and I'm fortunate to have the wife that I have, and that she's my ride or die. I know she'll do anything for me, and vice versa. Um, but I don't see that quality of woman growing up today, where they're willing to be your ride or die. Well, they're willing to do anything because they've been so scarred up and beat up by bad men and bad choices. By the time a decent man comes into their life, unless he's extremely patient and can work through all the pain, because women are like elephants. Not to say they're big, although some are,
They
but
remember
they're like
everything.
elephants because they
They
don't
remember
forget.
everything.
And they remember every painful relationship, all the scarring, all the lie. They carry it forward into the next relationship, in which whoever the guy is at bat has to deal with all those pitches that are coming at him, fastballs, slow balls, curve balls, hit pitch, all of it. You have to deal with it. And some guys don't have the patience to hang in there long enough to get her past her insecurities and bad choices to deal with it all. So it just fuels the fire, Tom. So we need to get back to helping young men understand what it really means to be a man, be responsible, to have some leadership characteristics, because those are the things that deal with the insecurity in women. And women need to get back to being women. It bothers me, Tom, when I watch old episodes of Soul Train. And I hate to use Soul Train as an example. It seems like everybody, all the women in Soul Train was size 0 or size 2, maybe a size 4, but you definitely didn't see any size 8s or 10s or 12 going down the Soul Train line. I'm sorry. Maybe that wasn't representative of the population. Maybe they got the cream of the cream back then. I don't know. But obesity in our community seems to be an issue also. And
It was an anomaly at back then. It was an anomaly.
well, I think that works against women also, Tom, because a lot of times the only thing comes down, let's say men are visual, and which we are, but a lot of times I think the visual effect is not so much in how beautiful you are or lack thereof. I think what it comes down to a lot of times is how healthy you are. Healthier women have a advantage over unhealthy looking women. So if you are overweight, my wife tells me I'm not supposed to say that. We're supposed to say
Well,
BMI.
what are you supposed to say, Jimmy?
BMI challenge, Tom, is
What is that? BMI challenge.
the BMI.
I know what BMI is, but that's, excuse my language, that is, there's something that a lot of women say. They say keeping it 100, except as it pertains to them. Don't nobody know what BMI challenge is. If you are unhealthy, if you are overweight, you are obese, first, as you know, there's this thing that we used to call Alcoholics Anonymous. First, you have to be willing to admit you have a problem before you
That
can
is true.
address it. So coming up with all these cute names doesn't help anybody.
Well, she has a lot of clients, Tom, that are doctors, and they say they're not allowed to say fat or obese or overweight, so they have to say BMI challenge. That's about the extent of what they can say. I guess
But
that sounds nicer.
but Jimmy, that sounds nice. But as these doctors, continue to get paid on the meds that they are prescribing to these women without changing the lifestyle of these men and women who are overweight and obese, it doesn't mean anything but making more money for these doctors to keep them coming back into their office, as opposed to being able to make permanent changes, which comes down to two things: exercise and what you are putting or not putting in your mouth.
So for the last couple of weeks, I've been watching a lot of videos on people that are cheating, all these cheating shows where I didn't know that was such a big thing, but evidently it is. There are lots of them out there. And very few people actually pass the test. But the guys who do pass the test, one of the things I've noticed is that the women that they're with are fairly healthy looking. They're body height weight proportionate. They're not overweight or obese or BMI challenged. But every guy who was with someone who was larger than him easily fell for another woman who came along who was much fitter and looked healthier. So I think a lot of times it doesn't come down to to looks and for beauty. I think overall it comes down to how healthy you are and how healthy you look. And the other thing, the reason I believe that, there have been several studies, and I think the last one I saw was maybe 10 years ago, but I think that it probably still holds true, where they take pictures of women, and they use the same outfit, the same hairstyle, same makeup, take a bunch of pictures of her when she's non-ovulating. And then they wait till a day when she's ovulating, take one picture of when she's ovulating, using the same pose, same clothes, same hairstyle, everything as best they can, and throw that one picture in with 10, 20, 30 other photos of her, and ask the guy, which of these is the most beautiful? Which one is the most attractive to you? In time, 95% of the men who in these studies, there's been two of them that I saw, 90+% of the time, that one picture in all those pictures of when she's ovulating is the one they pick out. So that lets me know that men are attracted to women who are healthy and that are in baby, that feel like they can probably have babies or maybe have babies satisfactorily and healthy. You need a healthy body to have a healthy pregnancy. And so the more unhealthy you look and that you are, I think it works against you psychologically with men, maybe not even at a conscious level, but at a subconscious level. They may be with you for sex and company, but for as being committed to you, I think men are going to be most committed to women who are healthy.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that's probably, since the beginning of humankind, however many millions of years ago that was. It's just like women chose the men, Neanderthal, however far you want to go back, who they felt would give them the most physical security and protect
Right.
them from the wilds being eaten up by some animal or something like that. And men are going to choose women that are the healthiest, that can help them procreate, or would make him look good in some kind of way, maybe make him look better, or be a good homemaker. So I think that's pretty fundamental when it comes to the choices being concerned.
Let me ask you one more question because I haven't been active in our frat in a long time, only because I'm still protesting the intake process, but that's another story. Because the intake process wasn't around for me, Tom. I went
I
to the
know, Jimmy,
Voodoo.
but social media and mobile phones weren't around when we were
Yeah,
blessed.
it wasn't, Tom.
And,
So
and, and, and on top of that, Jimmy, it's real dollars that these lawsuits are being filed against.
I
These
know, I
only these
understand. I understand.
millions of dollars.
Do do the the sororities? Do they still have debutante balls? Do we still have coming
They
out
do.
balls for
They do.
young
They do.
ladies?
Yeah, they do have what they call debutante balls. The sororities have,
I know they used to be
organizations.
big at one time, but they died away? Are they gone?
They are still going. I don't know that they're as popular as they used to be. One, because there are probably a lot more organizations out there that are doing things of this nature. Not only do you have the D9 organizations, but you have 100 Black Men. I'm pretty sure I don't know if the Links do something of that nature, but I know you have a lot of organizations that do these types of things. But the other thing, Jimmy, an unintended consequence, I think, of mobile phones and mass media is that a lot of young people who are growing up now, they're going away from the group, collective community that we grew up in, and they are connecting more with social media technologically. And so, unlike us, when we used to want to go out and play football, basketball, girls used to want to do cheerleading and things, face to face in person. A lot of young people today, they are a lot more self-inclusive and they connect more through technology. So as a result, I just don't think the interest is there as it was when we were growing up because they didn't have these things that they can have to connect with people all over the world.
But Tom, without some role models, without understanding what dating and marriage is about, I mean, dating should be that time that you hone your skills. Um, if you are a poor listener, date people and learn to listen. If you're, learn to negotiate, learn to compromise, learn the skills that you're going to need that are going to make you a better husband or a wife when you decide to pull the trigger. That's what dating is for. But it seems like now dating is just about a good time and sex. And when all that wears out and wears thin, and you start having problems, because in life you're going to have problems. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to work through it. You don't know how to compromise. Everything falls apart quickly. And it seems like it's just easier to move on to the next relationship, the next woman, the next man, than to stick it out and deal with an issue. Like one of the things like today, it seemed like when we were growing up, we were getting in little scuffles with each other, have little fights, and you know what? We'd be boys the next day. Don't even know what you were fighting about the day before, knocking, you know, sticks off each other's shoulder and stuff, and get into a wrestling match. It seems like today nobody can take a whooping. Everybody want to take a gun out and shoot and kill somebody. Um, it's like what happened to the old days of having a little fight, a little skirmish, and you know what? You're back on your bikes tomorrow, riding around, or you're playing football out in the street the next day.
I believe what happened to that, Jimmy, unfortunately, is that we have become so inundated with uh, violence in mass media. If we look at gaming, and a lot of the most popular gaming consoles out there, or gaming platforms out there, have to do with either war or violence or killing or something of that nature. Quite frankly, I think what it means is that our young people over the last two generations have been socialized more so into violence. If I think of the things that, Jimmy, we grew up on in terms of TV shows, we didn't have social media. We had a television, we had a radio, and we had our family. And most of those shows were wholesome. They were focused on the family. For us, whether it was Leave It to Beaver, The Little Rascals,
Leave it
Good
to Beaver,
Times,
yeah, Little
the,
Rascal.
the Jeffersons, Good Times, even as we got older, the Cosbys, all those types of things, they had really more to do with the community and the collective. Now it is, as they say, sex sells. I think that is on hyperspeed at this point. And so everything has become either one very hypersexual or very hyper violent. And when a young person or a generation of young people grow up on that, that is what they know. Just like we knew, I Love Lucy. We knew all of those shows that came up. They only know and only have a frame of reference for what they know. And if you add that to the fact that most of them are being raised by single parent households, and they are being socialized and groomed with not even what's on the television, but what's on their phone and on their laptops. If you look at the amount of pornographic material that young people have access to, we were lucky, keep it 100. When we were in high school and we were able to get our uncles or big brothers Playboy magazine and sneak it to the to the auditorium, to the classroom, and hide it, and all the boys got to get over in the corner, and then you had to look around and make sure no one was looking. Well, they have access to this stuff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year now.
So, Tom, with the time we have left, let's talk about maybe some solutions. What do you think of some solutions? I mean, it's easier to say for young ladies just abstain from having premarital sex until you're married. I mean, don't or wait till you're married, both sides, men and women, before you commit or get sort of engaged, and definitely before you get pregnant and bring children into the world. Um, so, what say you for some things that maybe young people can start looking at or thinking about to hopefully change the trajectory of where we're headed and maybe turn this thing in a positive direction?
That's a very good question. That's the 800-pound gorilla question, maybe a 1,600-pound gorilla question, considering where we are right now, because I don't know that we can go back. We have to move forward and figure out, what is going to help to build and or rebuild our communities, because we've got social problems, we've got political problems, we've got economic problems. Beginning with part of the answer to your question is we have no control of our communities when we do not employ ourselves,
You know,
when we don't pay ourselves through that employment, we don't feed ourselves. We've talked about, of course, the community of black farmers that have been decimated. I don't want to say to nil, but almost nil. So we can barely even feed ourselves. But getting back to your question, we are going to have to evolve and reinvent what our families and or communities to look like, because unfortunately I don't know that we're going to be able to go back to the Cosby shows and or a different world. But what we do have to understand is reinforce what marriage is and what it is not. It is not what unfortunately you see on television and what sometimes you are being proselytized in the church of it being fun and games, peaches and creams, because marriage, raising children, and building a family and future is not an easy thing.
hard work, Tom.
It is very difficult work, but you have to look at it very practical. You have to understand that it's not about you when you get into marriage. It's about your family. It's about raising children. It's about it's really about the survival of the species, the survival of your culture, and being able to create family ties, being able to create culture so that you can survive, so that you can be successful. I mean, if we look at very simple, if we look at tax laws in this country, tax laws are pro-family. Yeah,
Right.
you actually get, of course, exemptions for children who are in your household. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to be broke, poor, and then beg for money from the government, but you get exemptions for having children in your household.
True.
You get more tax benefits for being married than you do.
Married couple gets more benefit than two single individuals.
Exactly. You are more likely, in ideal circumstances, to be promoted and to go further in your career if you are married than you are single. Not just because, of course, you being single and you being married, but your focus when you are married and or are having children, even though some people are successful in spite of that. So with that being said, the good news is I do still see a lot of young people, some of who I've worked with in the fraternity and otherwise, who are getting married and who are having children. But I think to answer your question, we have to highlight and we have to celebrate the successes that we have within our communities, for those young people who are getting married, holding their marriages together. We know everybody doesn't stay married for a lifetime. My parents didn't. They were divorced when I was 3 years old. But celebrating those marriages, celebrating those success, and making that cool and making that popular. Because if we wait on mainstream media to do that, it will never happen. And we are dependent on mainstream media that controls the television, that controls social media, that controls all of those channels that are shaping our narrative and or our images, who are not doing us any favors. The only thing that you're going to see, Jimmy, are housewives of whatever city it is next, and that's usually a bunch of
I
drama.
hate those shows, Tom. Housewives of this, Housewives of basketball, and it's just all just mess. It's just
It
a
is.
drama,
It is.
a soap opera every day. It's like that's not even humanly possible that you have this much drama going on with your friend and associate every day. So these have to be staged, or these are some of the most corrupt, demented people to stick around and stay in that situation.
And I
Let me
think,
say this, Tom.
and I think
One
the
of the
other,
things that I think young people need to understand, especially from a man's perspective, so I'm going to speak from that perspective, being married for a very long time. I'm on my second marriage now, so it took I had to do it twice in order to get it right. It's taken many years for my wife and I to get it right. So we've had ups and downs. We've had sickness in health. We've had richer and poor. We've had all the things that you say in your vows in our lifetime. And trust me, you're going to go through each and every one of those. This will be the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in your life, but it's also going to be the most painful thing you'll ever do in your life. It'll certainly help you identify what kind of person you are in the long run, whether you can keep your commitment that you made before friends, family, and God to another person. It'll bring out the best in you and it'll bring out the worst in you. So, but you have to be committed for the long haul and understand that it's not going to always be easy. And when you run into tough times, you have to be committed to sticking it out no matter what. That whatever the situation is, this is not going to define us or break us up. And I'm going to stay and hang in here no matter what. That needs to come from both sides until you guys learn how to truly get along and love each other in a way that's satisfying and peace of mind and productive for both of you in the long run. And that takes time. That's not an easy state to get to. It takes some time to learn how to get there, but you have to have the patience to get there. I think all too often we're in a microwave society, but we want everything yesterday. We don't want to work for it. We don't want to stick through the hard times. We don't want to go through the bad times, the poor times. Like I said, we've all those conditions that you stated in your vows. My wife and I are going through all of it. She's been with me when I've had lots of money. She's been with me when I've been dead broke. And a lot of women would have jumped ship at that point because they'll tell you that I didn't sign up for poverty. She's been when I've been super healthy. She's been with me when I've been super sick and still by my side. So, and vice versa. And good times, bad times. I mean, that's just life. But you need to find someone who truly understands what it is that you're going to enter into and be fully committed to it no matter what.
I would agree, Jimmy. I think that you're, with you being a man of the scripture, you're going to have to be able to lean on a force that is more powerful than you. You're going to have to lean on God because, quite frankly, sometimes if you are leaning on your own human intellect, your human rationale, and your human feelings, you are going to fail over and over and again. And you're going to fail even anyway, even if you are leaning on God, but you're going to have to be deeply rooted in God, not the church, but in God and what he has to say about marriage, what he has to say about self in terms of him humbling you and making you a better person, quite frankly, because you are going to have to humble yourself if you are going to be in a successful marriage long term. Even as men, even as those of us who have been very successful professionally, you have seen a lot of men, unfortunately, who have been reduced to crumbs because of having a failed family life and or failed marriage, even though they've been very successful in business and made
Right.
millions of dollars. We have seen a lot of those of which we don't even have time to bring up right now. So you are going to have to humble yourself. You're going to have to lean on God. You're going to have to exercise a lot of prayer. You are going to need mentors who can help support you and give you encouragement during those rough passages. I'm not saying that you're going to have to share all of your business with everybody because everybody doesn't mean you any good, but you need mentors and people who have been where you have been before, just like in your career. The
I agree.
same goes in your relationships and or in the marriages, just like when we talk about mentoring young men and we talk about the challenges of why we see a lot of young men who are just not ready. Unfortunately, they have not had a functional, healthy father figure, grandfather figure, uncle figure, or mentor who can help show them the way. They're going to make mistakes, but if they're going to be positioning themselves to be successful in life personally, professionally, through their marriage, they're going to need someone to get advice from at times because we have a very difficult time being vulnerable, Jimmy. That is very difficult for men. And so we oftentimes are going to need help to do that. If it doesn't come from our father, maybe it comes from a good friend, maybe it comes from somebody at the church or someone else. And that in and of itself is a lot to pack, but you've got to simplify it as much as you can. And if there's nothing else, Jimmy, that I can say, you have to look beyond your own selfish needs and desires because, again, I know you can attest to this personally. It's not about you, it's about the future. It's about the survival of your species. It's about your family. And you're going to have to go through a lot, Jimmy, but you're going to have to sacrifice a great deal personally in order to get there to the other side.
You know what, Tom? There's one thing that you just said that triggered something. We talked about about fathers and grandfathers. Um, the University of Minnesota years ago, this is an old study, but they found that women who had no men in their life, no husband, father, grandfather, had the highest rate of miscarriages. And the women who had a husband, had a father figure in their life, and a grandfather in their life, actually had the best birth rates of all the and everything in between with that. So I would say, Tom, that find the right man if you're a woman is important, but having a relationship with your father, if he's a good father, is important also. And even better, icing on the cake, the lanyard, as they say in New Orleans, is if you have a grandfather who's a positive force in your life if you're a woman. Grandfather, father, husband, that's a trifecta. So you can find three good men to be in your life in a positive way, then that probably is the best stress reducer and best setup for a woman if you get all of that. Sometimes it's just a challenge finding a good husband, let alone the father figure and a grandfather to be positive forces in your life also.
Interesting thing, Jimmy, and I would agree with you with that. That's sometimes easier said than done. One of the things that we have to do as men and as black men in particular, because there is a absence of black men in our households helping to support these mothers, many of which who are raising children on their own, is to be good role models and to be good examples. Even if you're not going to be a formal mentor, I've been in Big Brothers, Big Sisters before, and let's say that you're not in the household, to be a good example, to be a good illustration of what a solid man looks like. Not that you are not going to make mistakes, but you know what? When you fall down, you get up,
Right.
and you keep moving, and you fix yourself, brush yourself off, and you show what falling down and getting up and being stronger looks like.
But Tom, the other thing, in the last couple of minutes that we have, of course, you've been in sales for a long time. I have also. Um, and sometimes you have to incentivize people, overcome objections, and show them that this is a good solution that's going to solve your problem and make your life easier. And if you're not committed to being a positive force in someone else's life, don't go into it thinking about what I can get out of this. Um, Go into it, I'm reminded of Zig Ziglar who said you can get everything you want in life if you simply help enough other people get what they want. And so that's how you have to approach these relationships. Go into it looking to get something out of it and to provide a service to the other person that you're in a relationship with. If y'all are just dating, then identify your weaknesses and things that will help you become a better husband. Not necessarily you have to marry that person, but you can at least work on the things that the skills you're going to need in the long run. Don't just go into the relationship dating a pretty face or a strong, healthy body and wasting that time. And then 6 months or a year later, you break up and move on to the other person. It doesn't do either one of y'all any good. All it leaves you with scars and make you harder and less loving for the next person to come into your life, less trusting. So go into dating relationships with a plan to improve, work on the things, the shortcomings you have, which means you have to listen to what the other person says when they identify things that maybe they like or don't like about you, or things that they see, and don't take it so personally that you become a hothead. Take it with this is a reflection to feedback, like a customer survey, and these are maybe things that if I don't fix in this relationship, I need to at least work on and be conscious of. I may need to fix in order for the next relationship to work.
Another thing, Jimmy, that I would highly recommend getting counseling and therapy. You cannot be too right all the time to get counseling and therapy
Right.
as it pertains to your relationships. And I know that traditionally within our community, a lot of that we lean on the church, and that is a good solution as well. But sometimes third party counseling is good as well to make sure that you can do the best that you can to understand what your own potential blind spots are in a relationship as it is in a career. I do want to acknowledge Be For Real Girl, who I think is cousin Audrey K, who has a statement or something on the chat. She says, yes, God, in terms of leaning on God to strengthen your relationships and not compete against each other, which is a very good, not compete against each other, but complement each other in different capacities to stay grounded and balanced.
Well, I think it was Peter in the Bible that said love is not competition. So she's right.
So thank you for that, We are about a couple of minutes before the end of the show and running out of time, Jimmy, but I think this has definitely been a good conversation. So we probably need to give some closing comments before we round out this show. We want to thank, of course, everybody who is and has been watching this show thus far. And of course, if you have any recommendations for future topics, of course, make sure that you reach out to us in the chat line, or you can, I think, email us at bmstalkshow@att.net.
And for my last little important advice, Tom, and I'll give you the last word, is don't be afraid, young men, young ladies, to talk to people who are older than you, who've been married for a long time, uncle or aunt, grandparents, maybe, or even just people you know, maybe somebody at work. But anybody who's been married for 15, 20, 30 years, they know a little something about how to keep things together. And so don't be afraid to pick their brain, ask them questions, and talk to them and bounce things off of them. And hopefully you will pick up a few things that you can add to your repertoire of tools to when you decide to get married to be successful.
My last statement and recommendation is that you should always be in the process of self discovery to understand yourself, not only understand your strengths, but to Jimmy's point earlier, understand your weaknesses and figure out how to neutralize and or improve upon those. Nobody is perfect. And so, constantly be in the process of self discovery and improvement to make yourself a better person for your family, for your career, and quite frankly, for yourself. And
Sure.
that is my closing comment. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we definitely hope you have enjoyed this show. And if nothing else said, we can close this one out.
All right. Well, Tom, wish everybody a good night, and we'll see you next week, same time, same channel.
Good night, everyone.